The Barbary Corsairs were a powerful group of Muslim pirates and privateers who fought to reduce the influence of Christian crusaders in the Mediterranean seas. The most famous of these corsairs was the notorious pirate admiral Barbarossa. But Barbarossa wasn't just one man, but a pair of brothers who would share the same nickname. Together, they would work their way up from pottery merchants to admirals for the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. This is the story of the Barbarossa brothers, Arouj and Khizr. Before we dive into the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more pirate videos. Born sometime around 1470s on the island of Lesbos, Arouj was the eldest and Khizr was the youngest of 6 siblings, along with their 2 other brothers, Ishak and Ilyas, and 2 sisters, who go unnamed. Their father, Yaqub, was a member of the Janissaries, the bodyguards of the Ottoman Sultan, and he was granted land on Lesbos where he married a Greek woman, Katerina, and had their 6 children. After Yaqub left the Janissaries, he found success making pottery and becoming a pottery merchant sailor. He would take his sons on merchant expeditions and teach them the ropes of sailing. When the boys became old enough, they purchased their own boats and began their own trade in the Mediterranean. However, it wouldn't take long for them to turn from merchant sailors into pirates. Now, Arouj was a successful merchant who was fluent in many languages, like Arabic, Italian, Spanish, French, and Greek. And he would often take his younger brother Ilyas on trade expeditions to the eastern Mediterranean, to countries like Syria and Egypt. And Khizr would operate more in the Aegean Sea, and Ishak would stay on Lesbos as like the family accountant. Now, at this time in the Mediterranean, there was a growing force based on the island of Rhodes. These were the Knights of St. John, a group of Christian crusaders who raided Ottoman ships all throughout the Mediterranean. These knights were less knights than they were pirates. While Arouj and Ilyas were returning home from one of their trade expeditions in Lebanon, they were attacked by the Knights of St. John, and young Ilyas was killed in the skirmish. And Arouj was captured and imprisoned in Bodrum Castle in what is modern-day Turkey. Now, he would sit in his cell for 3 years until his younger brother Khizr came to rescue him and assist in his escape. Understandably, this gave Arouj an axe to grind against the Knights of St. John. So the 2 brothers went to the Ottoman prince Shahzaid Korkut, who would initially grant them a fleet of 18 ships. With this fleet, Arouj would become the scourge of the Spanish and the Italian trade ships in the Mediterranean, and he would earn the name Barbarossa, or RedBeard, because he had a bright red beard. Khizr would eventually take on this moniker too, despite having dark hair. They were trying to build a family brand, I guess. So after a few successful years, the Barbarossa brothers were granted a larger fleet of 24 ships, and Arouj was named admiral in the Ottoman Navy. However, Prince Korkut was eventually forced to flee to Egypt to avoid being killed by his brothers in like a Game of Thrones succession scheme. And so the brothers followed him to Egypt to meet with the Mamluk Sultan, who granted them a few more ships and ordered them to continue their campaign against the Christians in the Mediterranean region. So they would continue to capture Italian and Spanish ships and bomb the Christian settlements all along the coast. In 1512, while fighting the Spanish, Arouj sustained a massive injury to his left arm and had to have it amputated. And like a total badass, he replaced it with a prosthetic made entirely out of silver, earning him the name Gumus Kal, which means silver arm. RedBeard silver arm. That sounds like a One Piece character. In 1516, the brothers laid siege and captured Algiers, driving the Spanish out. Arouj named himself Sultan of Algiers, however, he knew that he couldn't hold the Spanish off indefinitely on his own. So he offered Algiers to the Ottoman Sultan Selim I, who then named him Governor of Algiers and Admiral of the Western Mediterranean. However, in 1518, Arouj was killed defending the city of Tlemcen in Algeria from the Spanish. But the Barbarossa name would live on with his younger brother Khizr. So after the death of his brother Arouge, Khizr took up the name Barbarossa and was granted all of his brother's titles and holdings. He would continue to harass Christian settlements in the Mediterranean and eventually succeeded in driving the Knights of St. John's off the island of Rhodes, finally defeating their long nemesis. And in 1532, Barbarossa was summoned to meet with Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, who understood the need for a powerful naval commander. The Sultan named Barbarossa the Grand Admiral of the Ottoman Navy and Chief Governor of North Africa, as well as giving him governments of Rhodes. He also gave him the name that he is known by today, Hayreddin, which means the best of Islam. In 1533, Hayreddin Barbarossa was visited by an ambassador from the King of France, begging Barbarossa to join him in his fight against the Habsburgs of Austria. And for many years, Hayreddin Barbarossa would capture ships and cities controlled by the Spanish, even recapturing the city of Tlemcen and driving the Spanish from Algiers. The Emperor of Spain, Charles V, was so intimidated by Barbarossa that he sent a messenger to offer him Lordship of North Africa, which he kind of already had, if he agreed to join the Spanish, or assassinate him if he refused. This failed on both counts, as Barbarossa decapitated the messenger with a scimitar. In 1538, Pope Paul III assembled the Holy League, a collection of fleets from the Papacy, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, and a few others, in an attempt to wipe out the Barbary corsairs. However, Barbarossa's forces handily defeated the Holy League and secured the corsairs' dominance for over 3 decades in the region, way after his death. Spoiler alert. In 1540, Emperor Charles again tried to get Barbarossa to switch sides, offering him the title of Admiral-in-Chief and the rulership of Spain's North African territories, which again, he already had. When Barbarossa refused again, Charles attempted to capture his main headquarters in Algiers, but the weather turned against the Spanish fleet and they were forced to flee after being smashed against the rocky shores. Barbarossa would then sail his fleet to France to defend the country from Spanish invasion, but was eventually summoned back to Istanbul after Charles and Suleiman worked out a truce in 1544. Barbarossa would eventually retire to Constantinople. Now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Been a long time gone, Constantinople. Why did Constantinople get the works? That's nobody's business but the Turks. He would name his son Hassan Pasha as his successor in Algiers. And he would immortalize his story by dictating his biography, The Conquest of Hayreddin Pasha, which can still be found at the Istanbul University Library to this day. Hayreddin Barbarossa passed away in 1546, and his mausoleum still stands in Istanbul, and you can go visit it. And even now, in present day, the ships of the Turkish Navy will fire a salute whenever they sail past his tomb in Istanbul. And many warships and passenger ships are named after him. His life is the subject of many Turkish films, and the character Hector Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean was loosely named after him. He was considered one of the most successful pirates and naval tacticians of all time. If you liked the video and you want to see more pirate history, don't forget to keel haul those like and subscribe buttons and check out one of my previous pirate videos. I hope you're all drinking lots of water, doing some push-ups, and stay safe. Till next time.